who's opening up this thing? I guess it's going to be me.
Go ahead. You can open it up.
All right. Well, this is our in our mini series of Marcus Aurelius's meditations. This is our third episode, and I tell you what, a refreshing, wonderful sort of thing it has been in a journey for both my brother and I to bring this mini series to you about Marcus Aurelius's meditation. It really grabs you on each page, and if you want to know how and why that happens, just stay tuned and follow along because it is just wonderful. Right out of the gate here, what'd you think on this is our third series on our third episode?
I was really pleasantly surprised when we do some of our other topics, reading other holy books, which I'm going to consider this a holy book because what's more holy than interacting with the people around you and thanking them for their service and in what you've done and how they've impacted your life? What can be more spiritual than that kind of activity? But we read some of these other holy books, and I feel like I'm reading for 2 hours for a page of notes for our hour show, and it's cut in half. That's 30 minutes, right? This one, man, I feel like I'm reading for 2 or 3 seconds, and I'm writing for 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, it's nonstop greatness. I feel like I could do a thesis on just half of the first page. I mean, you could do so much on each individual thought, and I almost feel like we're not doing it justice by going so short, but trying to keep it in line with what we're thinking, so not get off in any rants.
Well, you're absolutely right with that. I mean, you could take the 100 or so pages of the meditations and you could turn that into thousands of pages.
Oh yes,
it's just easy because I try when I'm taking these notes on it, and I'm learning things even though I read it years ago and rereading it now. Man, it's made a big impact. It makes you conscious and aware, even more so, of how you're interacting. What are you benefiting from others? Like I took it to heart on our first episode, which I highly recommend you going to watch, about writing down all the people in your circle and what do they give you as far as life lessons, and really write down the positive ones. That is a fantastic exercise. I started doing that whenever we finished that first episode. Man, I mean, just little bitty simple things like that. Hey, put down that game you're playing on your phone or whatever, or the TikTok video, or scrolling through Facebook, or watching mindless whatever, and do something that really helps you grow as a person. And that is a big thing that can help.
Oh, there's so much in here that'll help you grow as a person, and I really do encourage everyone to read it. Like I said, we've only gone through the first 3 pages, and we've got 2 almost hour-long shows on it, and we could have done like a lot more. I mean, if we were writing this, I thought something you said interesting is now you're reading it in this point in your life. Really, if you're a young man, young woman reading this to middle age, older, younger, there's something that this gives you at each stage of your life. And when you put back into your own experiences, you can see this book so different. So when I say that we could write thousands of pages, really you could write probably several thousand pages per each event in your life or life segment there, because things change, your mind changes, and you're more awake and open to things now that you weren't 20 years ago.
Well, you hope you would be.
Well, if you're reading things like the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, I guarantee you, sir, you are open to it, especially if you're reading it for your second time years later. I guarantee you would be open to it. I would find it very hard and damning to the society of man if someone could not read this book and not gain at least some positivity from the first 3 pages. I would lose all hope in humanity if that were the case.
There's zero doubt in that, because it is just wonderful. And when we are at the point now of Maximus, where he starts to list out all the benefits and what he learned and how it helped him as a man, and he learned self-government, how to govern himself, and boy, that could just go on ad nauseum.
Oh yeah, because self-government is, I mean, it's what you do with your time allocated to you, your funds allocated to you. It's your own personal moral boundaries. And self-government is something that's been given away in our society, and we want others to take that right, and really any chance you have in self-governing was kind of being taken away from you, whether you realize it or not.
Well, I love the fact that he says he learned cheerfulness in all circumstances as well as in illness. You know, sometimes whenever you even do a forced laugh or a forced smile, it still changes your mood for the positive. Like, sometimes when we're sad or because this has happened with my other siblings, specifically my other brother, where he would be in a foul mood or something, and as his older brother, I'd be jovial and I would pick at him, try to get him to laugh, and then you get him to laugh, and he would say, "Oh God, stop that!" While he's starting to laugh, and all of a sudden you could see it starting to break his on those occasions where he's in a foul mood. It just laughter does wonders. It just really does. So if you can laugh at yourself and laugh and be cheerful in all circumstances, you could really get through everything.
You really can, and there's a good, easy way to practice this for you at home. Just if you wake up and you just say you're feeling a little tired or you're a little down, just go to the mirror and smile, and just do that for 30 seconds or so. And I guarantee it'll change your mood. Or anytime you start to see yourself kind of sliding, oh, my boss just did that, and just smile. It's like, it's not that bad. So that's an easy way to practice that at home, and in small baby steps. You can't just throw into, I'm going to be happy all day no matter what. It's not going to work. But if you do those small steps, like, oh, that was cute, you just got on to me, well, I'm going to smile, and you're not affecting me.
You can, it's almost fake it till you make it. It's all, and I like to think of like the old Saturday Night Live clip of I forget the character's name, but gosh darn it, and people like me. That if you just, it's the self-affirmation thing. It sounds kind of crazy, but if you tell yourself you're happy and you tell yourself enough, you end up being happy.
Oh yeah.
And if you tell yourself you're down, or if you don't feel like going to work out or do something, you just say, "Oh God, I'm just feeling it." But if you keep telling yourself, "No, I feel good. I am going to do that. I am going to do it. I am feeling better. I am whatever you want to be." You're gonna, at least you are pointing yourself on that path, and turning away from the other path you don't want to go down or be on.
And here's another thing that I like to think about is if you're having positive thoughts, you're opening yourself up to positivity. If you have negative thoughts, you're opening yourself up to negativity. So if you're having a negative thought about something, all of a sudden it's like learning a new word. Everywhere you go, you start to see that word. It's like, oh, pusillanimous. I've never heard that before. Then you hear it there, and you hear it there, and you hear it there, and you see it written down. So if you're opening yourself up to negativity, it's the same thing. You're catching some of those negative waves coming in. But if you're opening yourself to positivity, it's the exact same thing. You're opening yourself up to, oh, look, there's another positive. There's another positive. There's another positive.
Yeah. And I thought it was great that Maximus is the one who gave him a mixture of sweetness and dignity. And that is an interesting mix there of being sweet and dignified, because the word dignified you typically don't associate with sweetness. You think of it more as dignified as stoic and serious, and maybe just a little standoffish, a poker face. But sweetness mixed with dignity really changes the whole notion of dignity for me.
See, so I thought about that more from a emperor's kind of point of view, whereas I think what you just said is more of like a top CEO's kind of view. The emperor is above all those people, so he needs to be sweetness and, here's your bread, here's your circuses, here's what I need to do to keep you in line. I need to keep the mob happy. Whereas more that look from the stoic CEO, keeping everybody in line on task. I can see that would not show as much sweetness, but looking at it from an imperial point of view, when you have the mob, because Rome was and has been a mob several times, to keep that sweetness right there with that hand, that stern hand, I think that shows it in a little bit of different light.
I don't know if dignity equals sternness so much as like an austere, some kind of dignified presence. I took it as being the emperor or any person. Like there's certain people in the world that are just really dignified. They always are. They have a real care for their person, for their clothes or certain ways. They, not that they're flashy or any of that. They're just, you can look at them and tell they take care of themselves really well, and they hold themselves in a manner that suggests they have either some kind of real or false self-respect, but they appear to be dignified. And to throw sweetness inside that term just really it just makes me happy. I'm like, that's just a great thing to do. And it's kind of what you just said. No matter how you read this book, there are, like, you took it one way, I took it another way, and both ways are really positive.
Yeah.
And that's just the wonder and greatness of this book.
And if you've not read it for yourself, you can read it and put it into your own circumstances, and I would be happy for you to tell us what you think in the comment section. I would love to read some of y'all's comments on this.
Yeah, for sure. And do the task set before. He says, I want to do. Maximus says, do the task set before me without complaining. Man, I just think that is great. I've had, probably you have too. We've been working out our whole lives, and I've had workout partners. This is the first thing that popped in my mind whenever I heard this, that they complain when they're in there. God, I just don't feel like being here today. This is, oh God, I got to do one more set, blah, blah, blah. And then you hear that, in your workplace, oh God, we got 3 more hours. Or, we got, there's always people complaining. And instead of seeing the positives in anything, there's always complaining everywhere you go. I try to tune it out to the best of my ability.
See, the way I look at complaining is, this is the job that you're going to do. It's going to take this much effort. All right? Now, if you complain, you're adding this much effort on top of it. The job still has to get done, and you're going to do it. So complaining about it is only wasting more time and more effort. Because yes, because if you're complaining to other people, then it makes it even worse. You're spinning your negativity out to the other workforce. So in turn, they're going to think of things negative, and then it's going to get even worse. Whereas if you just get it done and be positive about it, okay, I got that done. I didn't really care for that job or care for that task, but I got it done. And look, I only did it in this amount of time. I have this much free time that I would have spent complaining about it.
Yeah, or you can look at it in different perspectives and say, well, I actually learned something. I learned what to do or what not to do, or there's just, or if you're in working out scenario like I just mentioned, hey, I'm glad I pushed through that, because now I had a better workout, I'm gonna have better results, those type things. I just think just don't complain. It's just and it ruins the mood of people around you. No matter what, people's energy just kind of seeps over to you. Whether you got this invisible shield up or not, it still affects you.
And people want to be around positive people. I mean, the people that have the most friends are the most affable. They're the ones that don't complain. Those are the people who want to be around.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are the people that succeed, and they don't do those tasks that they hate any longer. Someone else does them.
I love that Maximus says, and what he learned from Maximus, have no bad intentions. And my first thought was that water documentary where it was scientifically proven that water changes its molecular structure and its crystallization process whenever people have good intent over the water. It's just amazing. And I think that's true with everything because you could feel if I had some bad intent with you today, you would feel it.
Yes.
You would feel it. Like there are people, Daddy, y'all might be able to hear them in this video because we're in our video room here is where we do church and weddings right outside this door. And some people are in there cleaning from this weekend's wedding. If anybody in there had bad intent of straightening up, and well, we'd know it. We'd feel it. Bad intent is just bad intent. Don't have it. Go do everything you can. When you practice it, it becomes a lot easier. Just think you don't have any ill intent with anything.
You know, I have a hard time with that one. That is something that is very, very difficult for me.
How so?
I mean, how so? I mean, when somebody does me wrong, I want to do the same kind of evil to them. I mean, it's really hard to not wish ill on someone, especially like in today's time. I feel when people are trying to take away my freedoms, I wish very ill things on those people because they are trying to take away things that I hold very near and dear to my heart. And it's very difficult for me not to have ill intent on those people. And they're very prevalent in our society in all ways. So that is one thing I struggle with. But I think I'm getting a little better. You know, I'm really trying.
Well, show no amazement or surprise, as Maximus did. And man, I have gotten a lot better at that over the years, and by accident, I suppose. I just know that they're, when you have such an eventful life, there's been so many ups and downs, so many stages of, euphoric mindsets, and so many just really, really low periods of depression and sadness, and then you have a lot of joy. You start to balance that out, and you know that, oh, this is a really happy day. I should really enjoy this because tomorrow is probably going to be you got the coughs today?
Man, I don't know. It's something bad.
Well, just go through it with good intent and it'll be all right.
Oh, yeah. That's it. This passage right here was my only take this with a grain of salt. Like, I did not care for that advice. Because I think when something is amazing to you, I think it shows so much more of a person, and especially if you have children as a father, to show that amazement and indulge children in the things that they find amazing and to enjoy those surprises. Because when you stop enjoying the surprises of life, it seems like it can get too serious. And I don't think you should ever take life too seriously because you're never going to get out alive.
I don't know if that's exactly what that's one of the joys of this book is that you just learned something. You said you didn't take it with a grain of you took it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, you came away with your point that you just said. You learned and you thought about, I want to show my child amazement in certain things. And say I took it, and that was a positive for you. And I took it as, we don't want to get too amazed over something or too excited or too surprised because the next minute, tragedy and sadness and sorrow can be there. And then the next day, amazement and joy. So I took it as do your best to try to ride those waves in the center instead of being so high and low, which are both fantastic takeaways from the exact same passage.
It really is. It's one of those things that within this book, through the positive natures as we're reading it, we can take it both and disagree on a positive note. It's like I disagree with this, but I can see it in a positive light.
Yeah, and I'll never be in a hurry nor put off a thing. And boy, isn't that true? There was a lot, a lot of us lead really busy lives, but there's always time. I mean, there's always time. You can always make time. If you put off a thing, it adds to your anxiety and stress level, even if it's something you're not recognizing, it still does, because you know in your mind somewhere that you got tasks that need to be done. If you just knock them out, get them over with, don't complain about it, just do it, and then boy, it's just this inside relief that you go, oh, all right, well that's over and done. I can relax now. I can do whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, why wait for tomorrow what you can do today? I really like your point of what you said. You can go on and relax now, because if you do what you need to do when it needs to be done as it arises, you normally have more time than if you put something off and let it all pile up. Then you've got to do a huge amount of work at one time. Whereas if you're doing small spells, you just get it done. Then you have more free time. You don't have all that stuff building up. It doesn't weigh on you. It doesn't weigh on your mind. And then it won't weigh on your time later.
Yeah, I think it's great. And don't laugh. I've been guilty of this. Don't laugh to hide a vexation.
Oh, yes, I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah, I'm very guilty. I'm very guilty if someone says something that I find either offensive or whatever. You just laugh. You physically laugh or smile when you really want to tell somebody to F off, or
For me, I know that I'm guilty of my smile or laugh is a very thinly coated F off. So yeah, that's how I'm guilty of that. It's pretty obvious. I think those things they come across pretty obvious, that you're smiling or laughing to not get angry.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good. It may or may not be good advice. I'm not sure about that one, because I think that it's almost like a deflection. It's kind of like in our martial arts. You don't want to get hit in the face, so you smile, and it's just passing it over.
But it could be going back to what he said earlier in some of his don't show emotions, because when I just said that it's very obvious if somebody laughs to cover up a vexation, then you know that you've already won and they're under their skin. Whereas if you just show constant patience and don't let it bother you, as he said previously, right. Yeah, so you don't show any emotions.
You know what I think is great just now is that you just thought a second ago that you took that passage when you read it with a grain of salt, and now you're taking away live on camera right now even more valuable things from that, just by some reflection. It's just that good. That's why I too consider this should be one of the foundations of just imagine. Let me take that back. Imagine what the world would be like if the three major religions didn't subscribe to the Old Testament. It was only Marcus Aurelius was the great Moses. We would be in an infinitely better world.
Or instead of that, we just rely on logic, reason, and self-morality to judge us instead of some invisible beings in the sky.
Well, you know what I mean, because we've been it's been pretty evil. But this is just nothing but positive greatness to live and act by. And good acts, ready to forgive, free from falsehoods. It goes. There's so many things you can tell you what is a good act, what's good and evil. But we all have a good sense of what is good. And to do good acts, be ready to forgive. Ready to forgive is a big deal, because we've all been hurt. What was it? Either Emerson or Thoreau said you gotta, you endure the betrayal of false friends. That's just part of the life journey. And so we all don't want to forgive. Many people have been betrayed by their spouses, their best friends, stole or took something from them, and betrayed them in some way. We've all experienced some form of action that someone else has inflicted upon us where we don't want to forgive them. We, like you said, you wish them ill intent. So being ready to forgive, that takes a big person, a big open-minded heart to be ready to forgive. Because there's some people that have done things to me that I just don't want to forgive them.
We could have a whole individual show just on this topic. But again, I think there's some people that are worthy of forgiveness and then some people that are not. Let's just go back to Napoleon Bonaparte. He was way too generous with people that crossed him, and it led to his eventual downfall. He could have been much more Hitler Stalin-esque on taking care of his enemies, and he would have reigned for much longer. But he was willing to forgive and forget, and it turned to bite him.
Yeah, well, in our personal lives, I think that it can be both a positive and negative. I think you need to be ready to forgive, but it is like you said, you need to do your best maybe to try to weigh, is that person ready? Does that person genuinely want to come back with an open and sincere heart? Because I've had some friends apologize for past wrongs that they've done to me, and I sort of kind of forgave them, but it's like there's just still a scar there. It's like, okay, maybe I just forgave them and I didn't forget. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a full forgiveness. I feel like I kind of cheated on the forgiveness part. But I don't know. That's a big one, and that's something that as a man or a woman you really got to work at, and to know because you don't want to be tricked and fooled again into something bad.
I think what you said earlier with you talking about this in regard to your friends and family, if we just go back to page 1 and our lesson from our first video of writing down all the attributes and the people in your life and what you find most endearing and maybe not so endearing about them, I think this task may become much easier than one might first assume if you've done the groundwork in your own personal relationships and someone does cross you. I think you can look and evaluate that much more deeply and thoroughly and have a more informed decision. But then there's also the growth of a person. Someone that has crossed you at a young age, maybe they have thought on that several years later and they thought, man, that was a really dumb move. And, as you being the older individual in this case, say, I might have offended you when I was 23 and I just said something really stupid. And, that put a wedge in between us. And then you go back and you think, all right, I was 23 years old once. I remember what that's like. You're all ramped up on testosterone. You think, you run the world or, whatever it is. You're invincible. But then you look back on that and you say, well, all right, I'll try to forgive you and let's see where it goes from this point in your life. So I think it's all individually based.
Everybody grows as well. I don't know if everybody grows as a person. I think that the people are working on their growth and working on evolving into better people. I'm certainly not the same guy I was 6 months ago or a year or 2 years or 3 or 4 or 10. I'm definitely not the same guy I was when I was 20 or 30.
No, like what we were talking about yesterday, some of the things that go on in just our personal discussions. Went out to lunch the other day and we ordered, no meat, and us two big strapping Texas boys seems to be a very weird concept for most people. And I think if you would have told either one of us 5 years ago, we would have called you crazy. Like, you're nuts. There's no way we're not going to eat meat. But yeah, it's one of those casts in our lives that we've changed, that we're not the same person.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess being ready to forgive, you need to be cognizant that people do change and they do grow. And if they're, in your estimation, ready for that, then maybe you should forgive them. I think it's good. And be free from falsehoods. That is a big deal. Basically, don't lie. Don't pretend to be something you're not, because that gets figured out really quick, especially in business and personal life. I mean, you just find out fast when somebody is being false. Normally fast. Appearance and actions of not being able to be deviated from good. Give that persona, because that would probably help you out. Like if you're doing your best to go on a path of not being a false person, you're wanting to and striving every day toward your goals and living a life similar to as these lessons in meditation. Well, if you work to give the appearance of not deviating from good, well, then that helps you. Like if you're working toward, okay, my appearance is I'm not going to do these things, and then you don't do them because you don't want to appear to be doing it, and then the good thing for you is that you didn't end up doing them. that is like, and then you're relieved later that not only was I appearing to be good, I actually did do good out of fear or whatever, not wanting to let down old Marcus and Maximus here.
Yeah, those are people you don't want to let down.
Yeah, for sure. Man, and I went on. There was so much about the next character. Oh wait, hold on. There's one more thing for Maximus before I get into his father. No man ever thought he was despised by him. That's pretty good. Like that's if I was to say one attribute of my brother Trey was nobody who ever met him. No one ever walked away thinking that my brother despised him. Well, nobody can say that of me, and no one can say that of you.
No, they sure can't.
Man, and I'm probably, that's another thing I'm very guilty of. When I find somebody that I despise, and I despise some people, and I try not to. Like, it's something that I'm constantly working on with, like what we were talking about in the house a minute ago with different people that, like, their belief systems, you can ignore them and avoid those type people, but their philosophies and belief systems are so pervasive they alter your own life by the course of various laws and societal norms and that have a direct impact on your life. And because of that and the things that you love, like you were just talking about, you love and respect and want to continue some sort of level of liberty, and you see these kind of people destroying it, well, it's offensive. It's hard to not despise them and
not to let it show.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult for me because I let it show.
I'm much more on the letting it show side too.
I'm getting like if there's a scale, this is letting it show, and that.
Yeah.
My letting it show is really heavy.
Yeah, it's interesting to the people that only know us from this channel, but we can be much more honest and open in different settings. And we come with warning labels when we're introduced to new people through friends or whatnot. It's like, well, just listen to what he's going to have to say, because sometimes he can come across as really brash, but we don't mean it like that. We just...
Some people say that we're very blunt, which I think is a good attribute, a good personality attribute, but sometimes I would have to say all the time when I find somebody's views that are offensive to me in a way, because I get offended by their views when I know it directly affects my life. Like their personal views about anything I could really care less about, unless there's somebody that I've started to become close to, or I find them interesting for some reason. But when people start to infringe upon me directly and indirectly in a negative way, that switch comes on, and it's let's go. let's start this verbal conversation that has a big hints of physicality.
Well, see, I don't think it has big hints of physicality. I think what irritates people that have not seen us and we're very blunt is when we have a conversation that we're passionate about, we have facts, figures, reason, and logic all to back up our side. Where most people do not have facts, logic, reason. All they have is that they believe that my feelings on the subject mean more than your facts. I know that the numbers say this and they're conclusive numbers, but that's not how I feel. I feel like a little delicate snowflake. And we are trying to convince you otherwise, because I know both of us have the overwhelming desire to save the world. And we want to bring you over to the side of reason and logic. And that is where we make our mistake a lot of times.
And love.
Yes.
I think people misinterpret that notion of our... well, we're confident. We're confident, naturally confident men because what we do, think, and believe, we're not so locked into one set of belief systems that if we, on any topic, if we see facts that are contrary to a thing, we easily are able to go in that direction. It's not where we're not married to a particular notion, no matter what it may be.
And for a great example for the people at home, you spoke about working out several times. I've spoken about working out. Obviously, we both work out, and we have a diet to maintain that. Now, if you came at me a couple years ago, I would have been eating a completely different way, and it was very effective. But just like what you said, with logic and reason and facts coming to light, I'm much more willing and open to listen to these things and even give a different diet a try. For instance, going no meat. And it seems to have worked out far better than any of my other diets ever have. I'm much happier, much more full of energy. So when those facts came to light, I was willing to explore them and not just offhandedly say, oh, that's crazy. You have to have meat for protein. No, you really don't. I mean, so being flexible in our thinking is related to our sense of logic and wanting to know the truth, where I think a lot of people that do not care for us are tied up with their whole self-identity in what they believe without ever knowing what or why they believe it.
Yeah, that's exactly right, which I think is a great segue into Marcus Aurelius' father and what he learned from him, which is just a unbelievable list, which stay tuned for that because it is wow good. The segue of mildness of temper was the first thing he listed that he learned from his father. Mildness of temper. So whenever those impassioned people, start trying to drive a conversation or an argument with feelings instead of reasoned thought, and coming at it with an angle of genuine curiosity and genuine good intent with love in their heart, it's difficult for us sometimes to have a mildness of temper. Not that we ever fly off the handle, but it does. I guess our definition of temper would be you're just irritated and you just despise them and want to get out of their presence. I mean,
or passionately try to convert them to your way of thinking,
which is always a mistake. Like you just said, which I thought was a great analogy. Talking to some people is like turning that drill that was on my countertop into a hammer. You just can't do it. You can't wand the wand there, wave the wand around, and then say, "Oh, well, that drill is now a hammer." Yeah, you can't do it.
No, you cannot do it.
So I thought that was great. The first thing, and it made me think of what would be the first thing I would say about my father, because I haven't got to that list. I haven't got to him listing out like Marcus Aurelius has done. I don't know what the first thing would be.
I would think the first thing that I would learn from my father, and I'd say two things. One is when I was a young child, he had lots of businesses that he kept running all over the place. So his work ethic in his early 30s and 40s, or his 30s and 40s, was quite impressive. I mean, looking at people as I have grown up through the job market, job force, man, nobody worked harder than my dad and mom. Like, they worked the job of 3 and 4 people. So that work ethic and doing something would be one of his greatest things to me. And the second thing, which has helped me out immensely throughout the course of my life, is he taught me how to work out. So that was one thing that I think I will always be grateful to my father, because he actually spent the time to do it. And, we lived those moments. It wasn't something, and I don't really care if any of y'all out there like sports or don't like sports, but if your dad goes out and plays catch with you, that's great. But if he spends hours playing baseball, there's no practical application for that after you're out of high school. But if activity is lifting weights or taking care of yourself, genuinely healthy lifestyle, you can use that from the time that you can walk all the way until the time that you die. Playing a certain sport with your dad is only going to be useful till like high school or college.
Yeah, I just thought mildness of temper. I've only seen our father angry like 1.5 times. Like I've seen him in foul moods, but when I think of the opposite of mildness of temper, I see someone that is impassioned, angry type person. Even his foul moods are not so foul that I would ever say that they are the opposite of mildness of temper. I mean, they're irritating, and you can sometimes, like my first thought just then was thinking, "Oh, well, you just shut up, idiot," and you just want to walk away, which goes into all of these things that I need to learn better and focus on in my own way of thinking, and why we do this, and why we're glad you're along for the ride to help yourselves, and that's why we're doing it to help ourselves too. Goal oriented would have been something I would have wrote about. Yeah, like you just talked about his work ethic. He would set goals and he would push to make sure they happen no matter what. He never considered failure as an option. It was no matter what happened, whatever that goal was, he was going to see it through. And they did. Yeah, I mean, and then, yeah, but I just think that's great. Mildness of temper is a good thing to learn from your father. And I think that's something that's probably passed down to both of us really well without really being taught that. Because I don't know anybody that would ever. There's very few people in the world that have heard me raise my voice, like unless we're just talking and being animated, and laughing and cutting up, but never raising a voice in an angry way. Like that just doesn't happen. Like I can't even imagine ever getting mad enough to just like get over the top. Like I don't get it. Like I don't understand. I see people do it all the time, and I even have a few people that I don't know if I'm close to them, but I've been around them enough where you see them irrational and passionate in their voice, where you would think they were the opposite of mildness of temper. And I can't wait to get out of their presence. It goes back to that despising part.
Yes, it does.
It's like, yeah. I just thought that was great. To list that as the top one is probably he must have had a pretty good father. Unchangeable resolution after due diligence. Kind of goes just what you were saying. You talk on reason and facts. Your mind works in a logical way. Then you have, for the most part, we have good intent. There is, I think that there's especially I've noticed this from you over the past years, is when you're talking to someone else, especially, I would say, Ashley, or seeing you with Robbie or with me, or people that I've seen you around, you did have this wall of you had this mental attitude that was like you could feel it, that this is what I'm talking about right now, and this is just the way it is, and if you don't like it, F off. And with no love in your eyes, no, I mean, you had like the stoic sort of vision, like you had this, the X-Men red laser eyes, like I'll cut you down if you disagree. But not in anything of that was the opposite of mildness of temper. But
yeah, I've definitely been said I have a cold personality.
But that's really changed a lot.
It's very much changed. I can definitely see now that I'm much more open and willing to at least hear other people out and not just completely stop listening when they're saying something I disagree with.
And it's kind of like this, what we were talking about earlier with long-form discussions, to be able to listen. I think just this exercise alone, what we do with these mini-series, talking. I listen to you, you listen to me, we go back and forth. I think that helps us in our daily lives in a big way.
Well, I think it definitely does. I've tried to take what we do here and put it into our everyday world, because here we're very cognizant. We have the earphones on, and I can hear his voice much louder than in a normal conversation. It is really like stepping out of the ocean when you pop these earphones off. It's like a whole nother world. So trying to see each conversation in my daily life as this, where I'm thinking about the editing process of how I'm going to make this cut and how's this transition, and did I give him enough time to stop, to implement that into my everyday conversations, you come across as a much better listener because you are listening and you're thinking, all right, well, is this appropriate time for me? And am I going to be too brash? Did I let them finish speaking? Did they get their whole point across? And man, that has been really helpful to me in my everyday life. And mentioning, because we did have a series of interviewing people from different religions. And, the corona kind of squashed that with people wanting to get out. So I've been thinking about people that I don't really care so much what they have to say, but I still want to be interested and take away something from that as I was doing an interview here. So I've pushed my own comfort zones to hear and do things that I don't so much like or care about to get better at those things. So I've pushed my own boundaries and comfort zones to really try to get better.
Well, unchangeable resolution after due diligence is great in that you end up understanding your point of view better because you have contemplated it, you have thought about it, and in your thinking you have done your research, whether it's some scientific matter or a personal matter. You weigh pros and cons. You do all these things that, with that due diligence, gives you a unshakable resolve in this one particular thing. And in that due diligence, if more information comes to light, it helps you solidify that position, or you need to completely discard it and go. And I that's just another great thing from Marcus Aurelius' father. And he just goes right into no vain glory in what men call honors.
Oh, I thought that was brilliant.
It almost gives me chills.
It really does. No vainglory. That is something that's very difficult. That's very difficult. I mean, really difficult. Everybody likes to get pats on the back.
Oh, man. Yeah. And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with the pat on the back, and I'm not sure he's saying that. I think
I'm not saying he's saying that. What I'm saying is people like to have their horn tooted
in front of
everyone else. So to reject those things is very difficult. So those pats on the back that everybody likes, you should not dwell on that as a crowning point of achievement, is more what I'm saying.
Yeah, like getting big awards, like big award shows or the award banquets for whatever. That should not be so.
Okay, I'm so glad that you said award banquets, because when I thought this passage, I thought of the year that Lil Wayne won, or not. It was Lil Wayne. He won some music award. And he said, or no, it was Kanye West. I'm sorry. Kanye West won some music award. And he gave it up. He said, you know what? I didn't earn this. This was Lil Wayne's year. You know what? I'll take and accept your trophy when I won it. I was like, man, that is brilliant. You know how hard that is? You know how many people spend their entire lives striving for that goal? And I always thought to myself, like, I want to be that person. I don't really care about your honors. Like, I do it for me. Like, it's not for you. If I was producing music, it's because I like it. If you like it, that's great. Like these shows, we'd produce them because we like it. And if you like it, that's great. And I'm glad you're here for the ride. But we're doing it for us.
Yeah, for sure. And through us, just like anyone that has positive energy walks into a room, it is pervasive and helps those people. Same with negativity. But in this case, we're hoping that this learning experience just not meditates, but
floats through the ether.
Yeah, and goes right to everyone. There's many people that are as open to it as possible. And this is a great segue. It goes the love of labor and perseverance. This would probably be considered labor to some people. But to us, it is not labor. We really love it and enjoy it. And we persevere through all these things because it has been no easy task to grow a congregation in a society that's full of lockdowns. It's not an easy task.
But it did give us the idea for this other format, which we have tried to use to the best of our abilities.
And it's been a great advantage and really helped get our messages out there. But having a love of labor is important. If you're not doing something you love, you probably, one of your immediate goals should be find something else that you can love. Or if you're in a job somewhere that you really don't like, but there's a way to move up, figure out how to be better and move up so you don't do the same thing. Just love labor.
It's like Napoleon Hill and his laws of success. Working and doing more than what you're paid for and enjoying it, because it's impossible to pay somebody less than what they're worth, because people will see that worth and take advantage of it, or you shop your worth around to someone else that will pay you appropriately for it. But you have to love that labor and take pride in it. It's got to be something you like.
Yeah, and this is something that we've been growing at ourselves, is readiness to listen to anyone with a proposal for something good. And that's one of our propositions to you. Just that, be ready. If you're watching this now, that means you are ready to listen. You are listening to something that has the potential to help you be good. I think that is very valuable. Most people just pretend that they're listening, and they're zoned out. They're thinking about something else. There's no paying attention. And that's good. We should always be ready to listen.
Yes.
For sure. And undeviating firmness in giving to every man what he deserves. I think that is almost a little counter to some of the other things, maybe, because I saw it as justifying my defiant nature and people with opinions that restrict my personal liberty. And I want to give them what they deserve, and so that's difficult.
See, I look at that from my version of the word deserve. I think no one deserves anything. I think you earn anything you get.
Well, wouldn't that be the same thing as...
Well, that's what I'm saying, is I want to look at this in the passage of earn, because when you see this word, you're thinking of earn as well. But there's a lot of people out there that see the word deserve, and it has negative connotations to me, that, oh, I was born, so I deserve health care. I deserve this. I deserve that. You earn things, and you should give the men or people or whatever what they earn in turn, not what they deserve or what they think they deserve or what you think they deserve, what they earn.
I got to add to this, because I think you're, in my mind, you are on the same pathway of thinking on this particular issue, except that I think deserve means good and bad. Like, you deserve what you get because you worked hard toward a thing. You deserve my ill intent because you are trying to cause me ill intent. You deserve it. I mean, it's I like to think of it in the property tax term. I wish the people at the property tax office an ill intent. I cannot get around it in my mind. I say I cannot, so this is self-fulfilling prophecy. But it's I don't care for these people. They are a direct contradiction and a violation to every foundation of a free society, and which directly affects me and everyone I know and don't know. And so I hope that they get what they deserve. I hope that they all lose their jobs. I hope that there's enough...
there would just be others to replace them. There needs to be...
I mean, I hope that the whole system would be changed in that regard.
See, I would hope that they all wake up to discover how they have been and doing wrong to others.
And then they would deserve that new job they could get.
Yeah, I would hope that they would find a better, more fulfilling use of their time, probably to help instead of to hurt, to free instead of enslave, to empower instead of taking away.
Preach it, brother. Preach it. I love it. Well, to learn from vigorous action. I mean, is action not one of the best ways to learn?
Well, see, I think this is an interesting passage because in today's time, there's a lot of people that like to be force-fed what they know. They want to have it spoon-fed to them through the news or another passive activity like that, instead of going in depth and actively looking for what the information that they want and need.
Or like college.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. It's a vigorous action. But I think my first thought in that was that apprenticeships used to be such a large, it was just a large thing worldwide. You know, if you wanted to be a brick mason, you went as an apprentice and you worked alongside them to learn how to be a wonderful stonemason. If you were a woodworker, you went to, if you were in medicine, you went and worked as an apprentice. And you learned on the job. That was the best way, by far the best way, to being active. You actually see and understand how to do things. And wow, is that just it's important. Most people think that, well, maybe I should just go to school and my action is just to learn, memorize these things, pass the test, and there's no real vigorous action. I'm just forcing these things into my mind, and then there's no deviation or learning from what they give me because I need to study only this so I can pass this test and to go get this job, which is normally not a lot of action out of college. I just thought it was great. I think it's fantastic. And then
I think being active in your own education is what everyone should strive for.
Sure, and we don't promote deviations and curiosities outside of any curriculum.
No, they're strongly prohibited. We only want you to learn this. We want you to learn a standard narrative, because, like I've said earlier in some of our earlier talks and discussion, if you control the language, then you control the people. Then you control the thought process through what they learn and what they can learn and what they have the ability and the time to learn.
Sure. Overcome all passions of joy, as Father also said. That was kind of like the same thing we talked about before. It's the ups and downs. I think you're happy and joyous in moments, but just don't overdo it. Don't rely on that euphoria of a joyous moment, because it's kind of like in the markets. If it's soaring too high, it's gonna collapse back down. You need to find these happy mediums so your insides are not overly joyed, and then the next day you're going to be overly depressed. You got to find that happy medium to carry yourself, and do not place yourself above others. I think personally, I had an issue with that in my mid to late 20s up until probably 40, that it was pretty easy if, when you make these snap judgments of people. Well, that's some thunder right there. And when you make snap judgments and you think that you have thought about this particular topic, whatever it is, or whatever the circumstance is going on with a new person or someone that you already know, and you just instantly think, all right, my way of thinking is superior to yours, and so of course I'm above you and I got to go do something else now. I mean, I've certainly been guilty of that. I think most people have been guilty of that.
Oh, you can see 99% of people are guilty of that. I've always said that I think everyone, and I mean everyone, no matter what your station in life is, you should work with the general populace for 1 or 2 years. You will see how terribly people that provide a service are treated, whether they're a waiter, whether they cut your hair, or they do all manners of public service to you. I think most people think that they are above those people, and they are the ones that are providing the service that keeps humanity and life working and running. Like one thing I always think about, because there's so many lawyers out there trying to go after 18-wheeler companies, and the people that drive 18-wheelers are always looked down on, I think, in our society, when that should be the complete opposite. They are the people that keep goods and services rolling to your local area. Those people should be prized for what they do, not looked down on because you're not any better than that person. They, in most cases, are 99.999% genetic match to you, and they go home and they have the same families, they eat the same foods, they watch the same programmings, they do the same thing that you do. You're not better than them because you think that you drive a better car.
Or you think that you have a better income stream. I mean, we've seen just this past year where people have a superiority complex because they have a income level that's higher than someone else, and then all of a sudden we saw a great leveling where a lot of people lost everything, and
are
still losing everything. And so in those moments of superiority, just whether it's financial or intelligence or whatever, we probably shouldn't ever think that we're better than somebody else, even if we see that they don't have any reasoning in their thought process. Who knows what we could learn from them? It's difficult to want to be around them long enough to learn anything, but that's something that it's just their own struggles. I like his father's advice. He's freed his friends from obligations due to urgent circumstances, and they always found him the same. Just always be agreeable with your buddies and or family. I think it's a if you can't go do something with somebody because you have some other obligation, I'm not holding that against you. I'm not harboring ill feelings. I don't think that I'm less important. Like today is Mother's Day. We had to shoot the video a little earlier so you can go back to your wife and your baby boy and celebrate Mother's Day. Well, I didn't think anything about it. I think he's saying basically the same thing. You can alter your plans or change your plans, and give the people you care about just respect. Like, don't let that hurt your feelings. Don't be a little snowflake. Yeah, I think that's what I like that. And I put a star beside this one. Carefully inquired to all matters of deliberation. Why do you think what you think? Carefully inquire to all matters so you can form your most informed decisions. Your thought process is based upon real inquiry. Not that, who knows, we'll probably get kicked off this particular channel just for even thinking or mentioning, what's happening in the world today. If you listen to certain medical professionals on one area, then and they have great scientific evidence against what others are saying, and the ones that are promoting certain things don't have a lot of scientific evidence to back this up. And then you look at manufacturers of certain preventatives that don't make any sense, and the people that are doing them have a long history of causing adverse effects to people they say they're trying to help, and nobody inquires into anything. And if you do inquire, then it's like you're a heretic. If you don't subscribe to certain things that's being pushed on society to be normal, then you're a heretic and you should probably be burned at the stake. I mean, that is...
It's very pervasive in the time that we live in now. It seems that all common sense has gone by the wayside. When I made my comments earlier about math, I mean, it's some of these big government websites. You can go on, look at the dimensions of these barriers that are being put in place for your protection and the size of what we're trying to keep out. And the math doesn't add up. Or the cure for what's going on, the math doesn't add up to the death tolls. or just any of the numbers. They don't add up. None of it adds up.
There's no. That's why I think I put a big star beside this. You have to carefully inquire with an open mind and come to the best reasonable conclusions, and then figure out, why are people that have, why are Nobel laureates are esteemed professionals, medical professionals, being denied platforms to discuss their thoughts. And when we live in a society where you have to guard your words very carefully, not to offend people or to not have ideas on all sides fester so that the truth can emerge, well, that's a dangerous proposition. It's very dangerous. And so I think that's why his father was so valuable, saying to, in learning this, carefully inquire into all matters. It's especially the ones that are dictating what social norms are.
Yeah, do your due diligence.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, something other than what's going on politically and other in our society. Let's look at one of the positive things that's going on in our society. So many people are, and you hear it all over the place, of this crypto. Everything's in crypto. This Dogecoin's going off. I mean, you have to do your due diligence and really think of what these things mean. And does this look like a bubble? Does this look like something that you want to be in? What is the thought process behind it? Don't just jump on something and say, "Oh, that looks good. Let me get on that bandwagon," because you will be sorely disappointed. History will teach you. Just look at the old tulip fever.
Tulip mania. It's the whole thing where we've created a whole lot of bubbles in this world, and financial bubbles. And if you want to, when you're talking about crypto, to do your due diligence, why would one coin be more valuable than another? What sort of advantages does this really have over others? How can you use it? Is it applicable to your goals? A lot of really important things. I don't hear a lot of discussion about that lately, because it seems like a little bit of a tulip mania that's happening. But I still think it's great. I think anything that takes away or makes people aware of what and where fiat money, how it's created, how it works.
I think you have to guard yourself there, though, because what we were just talking about is a lot of people don't know what these mean, so they're just jumping on a bandwagon.
That's why I think we said we carefully inquire to all matters. But I think it is making a big percentage of those people start to wake up, barely open their eyes into there are different ways of exchange and exchanging value for value besides fiat currencies that are monopolistic, mafia controlled over the masses. There are other options, which is a direct threat to the whole establishment worldwide. So they're very interesting. People should carefully explore all of that and learn for themselves and make informed decisions. And I think that is a wonderful thing to have learned from a father. And I like this one. I like all of them. But being disposed to keep friends and to not tire of them.
That is something that's going to be tough throughout your life, because sometimes you're going to fundamentally disagree with some of your friends. For instance, just to bring it to the political circle, someone might like Bernie Sanders and someone might like Trump. It's going to be very difficult for y'all to get along and not dispose y'all's friendship over that matter.
Well, maybe that goes back to his father's point on carefully inquire into all matters. Because,
of course it does.
Yeah, because if someone has a different political view than you, makes you want to examine your political. Well, you would hope it'd make you want to examine your political view, and why does that person think that way? And then that could lead you down a big rabbit hole of, well, is this whole construct that we live in divide and conquer? And boy, that just opens up a lot of doors, which is, hey, carefully inquire to why you think certain things. Why are you tiring of your friend? Is there a good reason for it? You know, Benjamin Franklin had it right. You know, when you go to the end of your life, you're very lucky if you have one person in your life you can call a true friend. And it's a miracle if you have two.
Oh, by far.
You know, that's just the way it is. And you can have a couple of really good acquaintances everywhere, but you know, a true friend is something entirely different. Be satisfied on all occasions. On all occasions, not just some occasions. That would involve work, getting your hands dirty, getting your hands clean, doing stuff you don't particularly like. I mean, just be satisfied. I'm satisfied. I'm waiting in line, and I hate this line, but I'm going to not tell myself that. I'm going to tell myself the opposite, and I'm going to be satisfied with it.
Well, see, I think of that scenario in today's time, that we can find satisfaction in those moments. If you are forced to wait in this line, what can you do with your time? Maybe you can bring a book with you. Maybe you can meditate within a line or contemplate an idea and not be forced and subjected to thinking, I'm in a line, this is taking up my time. To be satisfied in that. Maybe if you ate a meal and it wasn't very delicious, but you were satisfied, you got your fill, and you're thinking that will carry you on. I think there's a lot of ways that you can use that information to your advantage, but you got to get a little creative. You got to think outside of the box. You got to think, well, I'm in this line, this sucks, but what can I do with my time? You're not going to steal my time from me, because I am the master of my own self. So you cannot take away something from me. I can give you the power to destroy it, but without my power and consent, you cannot take it from me. And you should be satisfied in those matters.
Well, I think you're right. Foresee things a long way off. That goes back to just the crypto analogy that you're talking about. You know, you should be able to see things and understand how things work, so you can foresee what's coming. It almost like be prepared. Be prepared for things that are likely to happen, or at least have a reasonable possibility of happening. You know, you've heard people laugh at preppers, thinking, "Oh, that's so stupid." You're, who knows? I mean, preppers prep for every single different thing. In my mind, I don't know why anyone would think it's unreasonable to have extra food in your house that is not touchable, that is, you know, food that would be set aside, water that is set aside, because we had a crazy event in Texas just a few months ago where it was a massive winter storm where you could not leave to go anywhere for about a week. Like, you just couldn't get out of your house. Well, people were freaking out. You need food. You don't know if we've had an earthquake in Karnak, Texas. Well, I've never even thought of an earthquake here. It's never even occurred to me. What if all of a sudden that caused all sorts of transportation issues, and now again you can't get to the grocery store, you can't get food. You know what happens if?
What happens if there's food rationing? Like if there's a global pandemic and people don't have enough food to feed their families, and they're forced to sit in soup kitchen lines for hours.
For hours, it is. To be prepared. That's just really what he's saying. Foresee things that are way off. Some things you can't foresee, but you know something is likely to happen that you may need some extra food or water. You know, you should be prepared. Maybe you need gold, guns, and ammo. You know, I mean, it's not a bad idea.
Well, sometimes I think of what he just said is think of things a long way off. Not everybody out there is a trader, but you can all go on Yahoo, and this is a pretty fun thing to try to do. Just look at the 1 minute charts and see if you can get a picture of how any individual stock is going. And that is your everyday life. You're living it 1 minute at a time. But then if you can take a step back and look at an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, a day, a week, a month, and then look at that, because the market is life. It has its ups and downs, and each company is either on an uphill or a downhill, just like an individual person. And if you look at those time frames, it gives you a snapshot into you or someone else's life and life experiences. So when you're on that 1 minute chart, you can't really see anything. So if you back up and you look at things from a greater picture, and you can try to plan for the future, but you have to stop and take a step back within you and yourself and your own life and try to see the future. But you have to have perspective on the matter.
Yeah, that's a very good point. To provide for even the smallest without display, his father teaches him. And his father is just this brilliant guy that's just amazing. How many times, there are all sorts of fundraisers and different dinner banquets and or if you're in a line at a grocery store, do you want to give $1 to this homeless? And people a lot of times will do it because they think the guy behind him or in front of him, they're seeing the action, or they're doing some sort of whatever at a church or school or some professional event where they're not giving or helping someone for that sake. They're doing it as a display of, hey, I'm a good person. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good that his father was teaching him that, because provide even for the smallest without any display. That's an interesting thing.
See, I thought of, and what's pretty relevant is the Coming to America scene, where he has this huge wad of cash and he just dumps it in their little fundraiser and doesn't take any credit for it. Just, oh, here me the money. What's your name? And just dumps it all in there because she's talking. And it goes, and the other main character guy that's over there trying to fight for the girl's attention is the hair Joe guy. Oh, there was a large donation put into the bucket. Was that you? Oh, yeah, that was me. And he didn't put anything in there. As a matter of fact, if I remember this scene correctly, I think he got money out of the bucket. So, yeah, I mean, that's just those changes, that there are those people that will take credit for those small actions, and then there's those other people that just don't. And you should probably err more on the side of don't do it for the cause, not for the recognition.
Yeah, amen. And to watch over the necessities and necessaries of empire, which I think is, you're going to directly apply that to your own life, because it is good management of expenses and to endure blame. So, we are our own temples. We are the house of our soul. We are the house of our mind and our thoughts, and we are our own empire. So inside of ourselves and how we live, we have to have good management over ourselves. We have to govern ourselves well, like his father is teaching Marcus here. Don't overspend. If you do something that is worthy of blame, take the blame and take it with the sweet dignity we discussed earlier. Yeah. That's fantastic. I also like not being superstitious with respect to gods. I mean, that has been a problem throughout history. There's been countless gods of every type, and depending what region, what little spot you are on this planet, you subscribed, or those local people, the majority of them subscribed to this one idea because that was the societal norm of that particular spot, and they all had their own superstitions, which is not different from where we are now, because right now this is, the Bible Belt, and then, we can go down south and you can easily find little pockets of Central America where they're still, native Indian type people. You can still you go to the Middle East and all of a sudden you're a Muslim. You go to India and you're a Buddhist or Hindu. It's don't be superstitious.
Well, it's interesting because I think we need to look at this from the religion of the day. And I would think that most people now, because it's a dead religion, nobody believes in the stories of the Greek and Roman gods. But during that time, they did believe it. And they looked at the gods as natural events. They weren't looked at the way that we look at Christianity, the Christian gods. You know, if there was a sea storm, it was Poseidon getting angry. It wasn't the god getting angry. It was the force of the storm. He was the storm. So we're looking at gods in a different manner than we do now. So I think more of what he's saying is if there is a earthquake, you know, it's not because Poseidon is unhappy and you did something to offend the god. It's that this action happened and it was a direct event marker of the god doing something. We as humans may have had no play in the matter. So don't be superstitious that if I do this, you know, I'm going to get graced by Mars. If I do this, Jupiter is going to grace me. You know, if I do this, you know, my wife's going to get pregnant. Juno is going to grace me. You know, you have those relationship with the gods, but you don't rely on them and put all your hopes and dreams and faith into things. Because one thing that most people probably do not know is in the Greek and Roman society and religion, there is no emphasis on humans being born and created like in the major religions of the day. We have the story from Genesis of Adam and Eve being birthed. There is no related story in Greek and Roman mythology. The Greek people, as I said in our first little meditation journey, is that the Roman people saw themselves as rocks that were cast over one of the god's shoulders. There is no emphasis on that humans are special, that humans have anything to do with the gods. We're more of a amusement for the gods. We're their entertainment center. You know, we don't have a direct relation, which is seen differently through the religion of today. So I think that has to be taken in the context of the society, but we can also take it out and use it for our current situation. But I think we need to go and look a little bit more in depth of the religion.
I would have to say it is directly applicable to today because people are extremely superstitious about different things. There's very superstitious Mormons, you know, wear your special underwear or something bad's going to happen. Pentecostals, women don't cut your hair because, you know, that's bad for the gods. You need to wear this burqa or whatever, you know, you cover your face because, you know, nobody can see, you're going to offend the gods. I think the superstitions are prevalent and directly in front of us that I don't know that if we notice them as much because we're just sort of immune to them. We see them all the time and really don't pay much attention. But, you know, you look at all these different, you know, Baptists don't dance, you know, you're going to go to hell. You know, don't drink in one Christian religion, but it's okay to have, you know, wine in another. Right? You know, there are a lot of superstitions within the same religions that just seem asinine to me personally. But there's a lot of superstition, and I think that's great advice from his father. Just, hey, kind of see this stuff for what it is. Don't fall for this BS that's everywhere. Make your own. Live your life in this moderation, this emotional moderation. Don't get, you know, keep yourself steady. I think that's was kind of the point. You know, just be steady. And I love that. And do not count men with gifts or flattery. That is fantastic. A lot of people like false flattery.
I think most people prefer false flattery.
Yeah.
It seems to work really well. I mean, go back to Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. He encourages you to be like a dog. I mean, really, people like dogs, and that is a form of false flattery, and it works. I mean, charlatans that try to get over on you, or a mountebank selling their snake oil on the corner, they're affable characters.
Yeah, and I think that's great that his father is teaching. His father must have been just phenomenal because don't do that, son.
Yeah, don't do it.
Don't do it. And that's right. It's basically saying, hey, son, don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's great. And no love of novelty. I think that's probably primarily good, but no love of novelty. There's some things that are kind of interesting, like the notion of going to space is kind of a novel idea. We probably should be a little curious about that. But I don't know, maybe he's right in love. We shouldn't love. Like, I mean, his exact words were no love of novelty. That's probably pretty good advice.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that, with not much to add there.
Boy, is that rain?
I think they're moving a barrel out there.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. We had so much thunder. I thought, oh, holy crap, that is pouring down. Maybe we just offended the gods. Always show sobriety and firmness of thought. I think that's good, even if you've sat around. Like we had a big, huge festive wedding last night, and there was some wine being poured, and there's a lot of wine being poured, and people were still very sober in their mindset. People weren't falling down drunk, even though there probably were some that were kind of tipsy. I think that's always good. Be sober in your thoughts, no matter what. Use the good things of life without arrogance and without excuses. Man, I love that one. Use the good things in life. Like I have a proclivity, a natural love of certain fine things. Like I am a huge fan of fine writing instruments. Like it is a work of art. It is precise, pristine. It feels perfect. It's not like just a regular Bic, which there's nothing wrong with a regular Bic. They work just great. But this is a writing instrument. And I shouldn't have to make excuses for wanting to use a fine writing instrument. No, I want to respect it and enjoy it and not take it for granted. But I thought that was a more wonderful advice, that his father just continues to shower upon his thoughts and his mind. And why would you make excuses? Because if you have the ability, you have, through your own efforts, your own steadiness, as his dad teaches him, you're goal-oriented, you achieve, and you're doing labors of love, you don't need to make excuses if you don't want to subject yourselves to TSA, for instance, or whatever else. You just want to rent or buy a plane. You should make no excuses for that. That was your decision based on what you've done, how you're governing yourselves and your expenses. You're not the daddy to everybody. You can't take your expenses and then go save the world. You can do your part by being a positive influence and a positive maker of things to help everybody around you the best you can. But there's no excuses, no arrogance.
See, I took this from a very large societal point of view. Like in America right now, we're going through a huge racial time, or at least that's what the mainstream media spews us, or even Coca-Cola telling people to be less white. Like, why are people apologizing for something that first they had no control over, is the color of your skin, which you should be judged on the content of your character, not the color of your skin anyway, because
that's the way it should be.
Yeah, because this wrapping that we're all in, it makes no difference. Again, you're 99.9999% genetic match to the person sitting next to you, no matter their race, color, or any other beliefs. You're equal to that person. So, I mean, I just find this as an interesting societal thing that could be used for better purposes, which is not. More people should read this
and really read it slowly and let it soak in. We're about getting close to done or finished with his father's wonderful lessons. Just got a few more that I think that are very worthy of note. That since you stayed this long, you probably need to stay for the rest. Known reputation of not being a fickle man. Above flattery, able to manage his and others' affairs. So to be known as someone not to be fickle. People almost like if someone knows you, my brother Trey, they know you are not going to be a fickle person. You're going to do what you say you're going to do. You're going to be above flattery. You probably even might find it offensive. And
normally when I hear flattery, I'm thinking, what are you trying to get out of me?
Yeah, I kind of get turned off. And able to manage his life and you could manage others' affairs. That is a noble sort of attribute that his father wanted to instill in him, and that's something we should all aspire to do. We don't want people to think that we're fickle.
No.
Because, well, for one, you and I are definitely not fickle. And that was great. This is, boy, did I wish this just would just spread and be pervasive all across this country and the world. Honored philosophers, honor philosophy, study, think. Do not reproach. I love this. He did not reproach to pretend philosophers, like he was not led by them. He wanted to, the point was, know them and understand them, weigh good and bad, weigh things, figure it out. It's like the points earlier, due diligence. Just how important is that? And easy in conversation. He made himself agreeable. That goes to the point that we were talking about earlier when we're having conversations with someone we disagree with, that we feel like their views are changing the societal norm, stealing our liberties. It's hard to be agreeable in those circumstances.
Yes.
But being agreeable, if you come to the realization that if you're not agreeable, if you cannot communicate in a way that is agreeable to the other one, they are never going to hear a word you say.
No, ever.
Ever.
It's going to tune completely out.
Yeah. So, the second your voice tone is altered in a way that is felt in a negative way or in a way that doesn't match theirs, they don't hear a word you're saying. It's gone. So that is it's just wonderful advice in every aspect, whether it's a kid telling his mom that's not what he wants to eat, or a husband and wife's conversation about what they're going to do tonight. One may want to do one thing, one may want to do the other. If you're talking in a non-agreeable way, well, it's probably going to end up being disagreeable to you.
Oh yeah, if not both parties.
That's right. He took reasonable care of his body. That's something that we've talked about a lot.
I really like where he went in depth with that he wasn't too concerned with the way he looked, but he wanted to be, fit and nice. He didn't develop too much time into it and become an obsession with it. He only did it for his own benefits and health as he grew older, that he didn't have to see the doctors, that he didn't have to go and do a lot of things that the other men of the time did. I think if we looked at that through the scope of our own society, how many of our own problems could be fixed with people taking better care of themselves?
Oh.
You don't have to have a body of a Greek god, but you do want to be able to get up in the morning, to move, to be able to live your life to the fullest. I don't know why people wouldn't indulge that more.
Yeah, you don't need to go to a gym to get good exercise. You can just do fantastic exercises, yoga, stretching, squats with no weights, push-ups, just little things.
Just getting off the couch and going for a walk.
Sure, long walks, nice passive exercise. Those are, I like the way he explained that too. I'm not doing these things so I will look better. So when I go to the spring break or to the beach, that the chicks are going to be checking me out.
Yeah, because he did mention something about taking a bath at undue times or something.
Right.
So I was assuming that was showing off your body in front of others. I'm not 100% sure on that adaptation, but it seemed something like that.
Yeah. So that was just fantastic. He would give way to smarter people in a particular field. That is great. And I think that's something that we are, well, I don't think, it is something we're obviously not doing today. There are smart people in the fields of all sorts of things, whether it is trade, political philosophies, monetary systems, health, especially health. Man, we're silencing people everywhere, all over. It's just how many people have heard of Austrian economics? How many people have heard all of the counter arguments, the real counter arguments to what has happened globally with this thing? It's I love that you give way to them. You listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just because you may have an opinion based on what you've heard from somebody else, because this person's view is counter to that. Oh, we have to silence them or not listen to them at all. That the truth can't come out if we don't have all sides of any particular topic.
Which goes back to doing your due diligence and research on the matter.
That's right. Give way to the smarter people. Let them have a voice. And this was the last one. And he conformed to the institutions of his country without showing affection for them. I thought this was interesting because you don't have a choice but to acquiesce to your institutions of your country because you're forced into it. Like you're forced to have a driver's license. You are forced to rent your property, your home, your farm, your whatever from the government. You are forced to do so many things with the institutions, even in his day and in our day. But I did like how he said, without showing affection for them. It was almost like he was saying, you're probably not going to like it, but you might want to just not even, just go along with it and don't mention it. It's kind of what I took away from it. Like, some things you're just not going to be able to change, maybe. I don't know. That one was something that I think that could go on for a long, long discussion trying to figure out what sort of advice that was.
Yeah, it's really an interesting point that I really don't think that we have the time to really give it enough full thought. I think that we could have our own just show on how we feel about this and how we feel about it on completely different matters, because I can see this as being positive in some aspects. I can see it being negative in some aspects, and I can also see it being neutral in some aspects.
Sure, it's a really difficult one. But, overall, whenever you're looking at all of what we just covered, all of those things from Maximus and his father, wow, just learning from those two guys, just him sitting down and writing out what he learned, how to live a better life, just from those two people closest to him, was invaluable.
It really was something that I like to look at books and characters in books as they can be real people and substantial figures in your life, because when they have put down their thoughts on paper like Marcus Aurelius did, when you look back through the course of your own existence and the people that you interact with, how many of those interactions do you truly remember and are part of that character and person in your life? You have full access to the meditations of Marcus Aurelius whenever you want. So they can be a figure in your life that you can go back to, because memory is very fickle. So that's why we use pen and ink and enslave them to do our remembering for us.
But you're not fickle.
No. Memory is fickle. So we can go back to these people like Maximus or his father, his grandfather, and we can take those people and figures to heart and use them in our own life, because Marcus Aurelius enslaved pen and ink for our benefit, that now we can take those characters, and there's no reason we can't learn from them. There's no reason that we can't say, I learned that from Marcus Aurelius' grandfather.
Oh, for sure. I learned from Maximus. Yes. Maximus taught me this. Rusticus taught me this. These guys taught me this. Thank God for Epictetus. Yeah. I mean, all these things, these are just, without them, mankind would be probably in a much worse state than it already is. Oh. Well, that was great, and I hope everyone that stayed with, especially if you stayed with us this long, these things really help us grow. And if you really like us and you enjoy these discussions, do as my brother asked, and because it really helps us, especially as we're trying to grow this channel. I mean, we have some videos where I think we should have tens of thousands of views, and we have less than what I would like. And then we have some that I thought would not get any views, and they have tens of thousands. But it's not enough. We really need to push these positive messages and learning out there. So we'd really, really greatly appreciate your help. And thanks for staying this long with us. And join us for the next, which it just continues to get better with Marcus Aurelius. And you can sign us out or say anything you need to, Mr. Schmidt.
Well, I do deeply appreciate everyone that has supported us throughout this long journey we've been on. And hopefully we have lots and lots of other videos to discuss. And I would love to have some good positive comments that we can also work back into our show, that we can engage you as the people out there, because I think what we're doing this for is our own personal journey and to give us a hope for humanity and mankind. And I would really like to engage in some more conversations with you out there. So with that, thanks and have a good day.